I'm one of these people that has worked in radio for 15 years, and I haven't any formal qualification in radio at all. I have a degree in management with a focus on hospitality studies, and I have a master's in tourism and economics, which, as you can imagine, there's no link at all to radio broadcasting. But you'll find an awful lot of people in that whole area have various qualifications. At the very top of the game in Ireland, you have people like Pat Kenny, who was an engineer, Miriam O'Callaghan, who studied to be a barrister and sort of, for the legal profession. And there's so many more examples of people that have done that. So some people have gone off on one route and got into broadcasting. I got into broadcasting shortly after college, so I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But I would always make big comparisons between people who work in hospitality or any people-based job and broadcast, because it's all about people, and it's all about stories, and it's all about serving people. So there are parallels. But the other thing I would say, very briefly, is that it's more about personality and the kind of person you are. There are certain types of people that thrive in a media environment, and they're the kind of people that have empathy, they like stories, they like people. And it's the combination of doing that with the right course that ensures a degree of success, as opposed to just the course. Like anybody in radio, there are the influences that you'll admit to, and there are the influences that you won't. My earliest recollection of radio was listening to a guy called Bruno Brooks on Radio 1 in England. He used to do the chart show in the 80s, and the only way I would be able to listen to him was in my dad's car. So every Sunday evening, when he was running down the UK Top 40 singles chart, I would sit in my dad's car, tune into medium wave 108.9 and listen to BBC Radio 1. And that way I would have the UK chart before anybody else. Because on Monday morning, I remember on the breakfast show, on Ian Dempsey's breakfast show, on 2FM at the time, he would read out the top 5. But I always knew on Sunday evening who the top 5 was. I was that much of a nerd. I was about maybe 10 or 11 at that point. And I used to listen to his style, and I used to try and emulate his style. I had a little tape recorder in my bedroom, and I used to try and do top 40 countdowns myself. Very, very, very cringy stuff at this stage, and really embarrassing, but I still have the tapes. And I was trying to emulate his style. So he was one of my first influences. I think on Irish radio, I listened to a whole range of people. I did like Morning Ireland from a young age. I love the voices, I love the authority. I did go through a phase of loving Tony Fenton on The Hotline, which was an old show on 2FM. And then, as I got more and more into broadcasting, I loved the likes of Terry Wogan and Michael Parkinson for the way that they can so easily communicate and make you feel that they're right there, a couple of inches away when they're talking to you. That sort of intimacy, that warmth. So they'd be some of my formative influences. I started working in Radio Kerry in March 1998 as a voiceover artist. I was working for a hospitality company in Kerry that ran a lot of different properties, self-catering properties and tourism accommodation. And I was doing a commercial for them. So I wrote a commercial for them and sent it to Radio Kerry. I then came down to make sure that the production of the ad was to my liking. I was a bit fussy about it because I was interested. And the producer asked me to voice it. So I voiced it. It was heard, and I was asked to come back and do more commercials. These were all unpaid. I was getting no money for them because I was working somewhere else. Over time, I was asked to do a fill-in show one evening at very short notice, which I did, and didn't do great at it, I don't think. I just didn't have the technical skills, but that led to more and more work. And slowly it built up, and I was offered more permanent shows. And then eventually I was offered a full-time gig on breakfast and a junior management position, all in the 1 month. So it all kind of came very quickly. And I've worked in radio since. That was in 2001. So there was a slow build-up of a lot of part-time work. But I guess it was part accident, to answer your question, and part kind of latent opportunity. I always really wanted it. So when the opportunity came, I was ready. I practiced for years in my bedroom as a young man doing radio shows and that. So it was kind of familiar to me. In a sort of a nerdy way, it was familiar. I knew what I wanted. Yeah, there's 3 things that I would suggest that students in a 3rd level university or IOT or College of Further Education should really be looking at on top of their course. The first thing is, and these are questions for them, are you learning practical skills? Theory is no good in media. It's nice when you're planning something. It's nice when you're doing a treatment on something or when you're writing. When it comes to actually recording, even doing pre-prod, or production, or post-production, do you have the skills? You've got to ask yourself that question. That's number 1. Number 2 is industry experience. You need to get in to environments where work and media is being done. College environments are great, but they're too safe. There's no danger. There are very rarely commercial pressures. So you need to be in a business where if you make a mistake, it costs people money. or listeners. That fundamentally changes the way you learn because there's a new pressure. So industry exposure is very important. And it doesn't matter at what level and at what scale. If those pressures are present, it's good. And the third and final thing that students today, in my experience, are not good at is networking. You need to find people either on LinkedIn or on Facebook, or find your way to industry events where people are going to be around, and you need to talk to them and make an impression. I would always tell students to have a life story that lasts no more than 40 seconds, surmising exactly what you intend to do in the next 5 years. So if you find yourself in a lift, on a stairwell, or meeting somebody over a coffee, you can tell them in 40 seconds what your immediate career plan is. If you can't do that, you have no idea where you're going, and I don't think anybody in the industry would be in a